right? That's what we want, right? You know, I just get frustrated that, November didn't happen in Jackson County like I was hoping it would. I wrote on here, I'm preaching to the choir. So, it's about time I probably get this meeting started, because people always go, Chuck, when are we going to do the Pledge of Allegiance? When are we going to do the national anthem? When does Tom get to pray, you know? So, if everybody could stand up and take your caps off, we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance. We love this country. Amen. We absolutely love this country. And we're not going to let people take it away from us, that's for sure. And keep standing, because my wife is going to push a button here in a second, and we're having the national anthem.
Wrong button.
Turn it up. What was that song? I now want to introduce, there's a dog in the room running. I want to introduce my favorite preacher, Tom. Amen. Come on up.
Thank you, Chuck. Y'all can be seated for a minute. I keep standing too long. I'm going to ask the gentleman that before he would ask me, come on. He wanted to include in our prayer tonight a reference to the fact that 72 years ago...
Today,
72 years ago.
72 years ago today.
Okay, go ahead and share just briefly.
There were a couple of Navy Corsair pilots defending the Marines at Chosin Reservoir during the Korean War. One of them was named Jesse Brown. The other one was named Tom Hudner. Jesse was from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, a black man. Tom Hudner was from Massachusetts, a white man. They were both Corsair pilots. Jesse's plane was shot down by ground fire, and he landed in a snow-covered field 13 miles south of the Chinese border. He crash-landed his plane. Tom Hudner went in and crash-landed his plane to try to save Jesse's life. They were friends. Sadly, Jesse did not make it, and they had to come in the next day and napalm the wreckages. For that action, Thomas Hudner was presented the Medal of Honor by Harry Truman on April 21st, 1951. It is all depicted in a movie currently playing called Devotion. I recommend it to you. I think it's worth your time. Hopefully, when you give your prayers tonight for the good Lord that such men lived.
Praise God. Amen. Thank you for sharing that. And that's something to consider, for all the people that have gone before us, that have given their life, given a good portion of their life, or even members of their own physical bodies to protect this nation, to make this nation what it is today. So, and I just want to encourage us to pray, even though we didn't see the results to a great extent on the election in November. I have to remind myself and those that I minister to in our church that our hope is really not in our political system, even though we want to influence as much as we can and as long as we can to try to get godly people in office to give us as much peace and freedom as we can possibly have. But truly our hope has to be in Jesus Christ and in His coming kingdom. Because we know that this world, if you're Christians, if you know anything about the Bible, you know the Bible says this world is passing away. And this world is not going to be a favorable place to live for people of faith and people who want to stand on biblical principles. It's just not. I mean, most of us in here are over 50. Unfortunately, many of us are over 70. Some of us, I'm sure, are over 80. And in those decades that you've been on this earth, you've seen tremendous change in what's acceptable, what's promoted, what's even being forced on us nowadays to accept, even though we may choose not to accept it. They're trying to put pressure on us to accept it. And I know 40, 50, 60 years ago, most of us probably wouldn't believe that the culture that we were going to live in would ever get like it is today. Young people don't have that reference point because they haven't seen that whole time span of history and life like some of us have. But so I'm saying all that to say this. Let's keep our focus in the right place. And that's on our faith in Jesus Christ and what His Word tells us. But as long as we're here on this earth, let's continue to work and to serve and to try to bring as much truth and light into our culture as we can. Amen? Amen. You all agree to that? Amen. Well, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we ask you tonight to be present with us. We ask that your Holy Spirit would lead and guide the rest of this meeting. Lord, that we would walk with you and know you in this present age. And even though our society is changing rapidly, we will stand firm on what we know is true, what we know is right, what we know is healthy, and what we know that makes good, godly homes and families in a nation. So, Lord, I pray tonight that you would bless all those that have gone before us and given their lives. These men that were referenced tonight from the Korean War, as well as many, many, many thousands that gave their life in other battles. So, Lord, we thank you. We ask you to bless tonight our speakers and just give us your grace as we walk with you in this present age. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Tom preaches up here on 7th Highway right next to Petland, in the strip mall there. It's called Summit Springs. And what I love so much about him is he preaches the word of the Bible. The word of the Bible. You
can come to church, then you can buy your dog food.
That's right. But he's not sugarcoating anything. It's not a feel good.
No, it's not a feel good.
It's not a feel good. It's the word of the Bible, exactly the way it's written. And I love that part of it, Tom. Thank you for being here tonight. Tom's got to leave early. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I go to that church and I see more and more and more of you there, and it's wonderful. He came to me, this is between us, don't tell him. He says, Chuck, I'm going to have to do 2 services before too long. I don't want to work that hard. Because it was, yesterday morning, it was pretty full in there, wasn't it?
Sure was.
So, tonight, I wanted to let you know, if you're not getting our emails, there are sheets up here to sign your email address. There's also a We the People Book of Business. If you have a business that you want to advertise, put your card in We the People Book of Business over here. Donna Gordon takes that once a month and adds to it, and then we email out the list of all business owners. We like to do business with the like-minded people. Why not? Is the way I look at it. Why not? So if you got a business card, put it in this book of business up here. And there's also a bowl. You can throw a couple of bucks in there to help us pay for the rent. I'd appreciate that too. Our first speaker, Ron, come up here if you don't mind.
Am I speaking first?
You're speaking first.
I didn't know.
I always surprise you. Ron and I, we probably met about 40 years ago. We just don't remember. Ron lived 11 miles from me. I lived in a little town called Pilot Grove, and Ron lived in Boonville, not too far away. And we're only 2 years apart.
I'm old. Right?
I think we might have had, we didn't have the same mom, but we might have had the same dad. We say we're twins.
You can see that, right?
We are twins.
We look at the chin, look at the chin.
Ron's a good friend of mine. He is a good friend of mine. He is conservative. And what I love so much about him is he talks about uniting. He talks about love. He talks about loving one another. It doesn't matter the minority. It doesn't matter white, black, red, yellow, black, and white. It doesn't matter. But the divide we have in this country is horrific. We can't talk about anything without people getting mad at us, and that's ridiculous. So that's why I want you guys to broaden the way you think and inviting people in here so we can educate them. And that's all we're doing is educating. We're bringing in knowledgeable people to educate our group the best we possibly can so we can educate others. So, Ron, you got your 10 minutes, buddy.
All right, well, I'm going to set my timer. In case I go long. I'll never know what I set for 20. So good. Well, I'm excited to have a chance to share a little bit and talk about America, my favorite thing, and the love of our country. Runs deep. I was born, actually, believe it or not, I was born a rich white kid. Nobody believes that. I mean, I don't know where people are from, I'm telling you the truth. No, I was born in central Missouri, and born in a time of during Jim Crow. I was raised in what they call a sundown town, in a very segregated community. Would have a lot of negative circumstances to overcome. I also grew up wanting to become a Black Panther because I was part of the Black Panther movement at that time. It was an interesting time in American history. But a lot of circumstances took place in my life that opened my eyes to something that was dramatically different, and the core of that was the gospel of Jesus Christ. There's a difference in terms of relationship when you walk with Him. But before that, became a relationship with this friend of mine named Charlie. Charlie and I played 7th grade football together, right? And he's a white kid, and one day Charlie looks at me and goes, "Hey, can you come over to my house after school?" Now, some of you might relate to this, but I'd never been to a white guy's house at that point in my life. It had not happened. And so I took him up on his offer. And he warned me after I said yes. It's really pretty poor of him. But he said, after I said yes, he goes, "Well, I want you to know my dad was in World War II. He led a battalion of black soldiers in the conflict, and they abandoned him. And he hasn't spoken to a black person since." Let's do this, man. Let's go. So I go to Charlie's house, and we sit down, and we talk, and his mom and dad are there, and they're real friendly and engaging. And Charlie goes to the bathroom or wherever, left the room, and his dad leans over and goes, "Hey, you're always welcome here. Even if Charlie's not home, if you want to come by for a glass of milk or Kool-Aid or whatever, if you want to go in the garage, get a football, bicycle, whatever, you're always welcome to our house, or mi casa, su casa." I don't think he spoke Spanish, but that was the beginning of something dramatically different than what I anticipated. And fast forward a few months, and I didn't grow up in a Christian home. In fact, we didn't go to church except maybe Christmas and Easter every once in a while. But on a Thursday night in my 7th grade year, I heard the gospel on TV. And I thought, yes, I want to go. I want to start this faith journey. And as a 13-year-old boy, I got up on Sunday morning, walked to church by myself, walked into the church, sat down in the pew, and listened to the preacher. Okay, really, I didn't. Tom, well, don't tell Tom, but nobody listens to preachers. You know what I'm saying? I do, you guys, because here's what I do. If I go to church and I see you afterwards and say, that's a great sermon, I'll ask you what you learned, and you will look at me like I had no idea what I learned. But that's another point. So anyway, nonetheless, so I go to church, I sit on a pew, and I remember two ladies in front of me. One of them said about me that I didn't belong there. And the other one said I shouldn't be there. And the irony of that was it was a black church. And my little 13-year-old brain said, oh my God, what just happened here? I've got this white family that really literally has embraced me. And to this day, I mean, mom and dad have passed away since, but Charlie and I are still friends. His brother Terry and I are still friends. In fact, Charlie and Terry don't like each other, but I like both of them, but that's another story. But it was a dramatic shock to my mindset as a kid. I understood that, okay, wait a minute. Here are people over here this color, and they treat me like family. Here are people over here this color. They don't really want me to be a part of what's going on with their little world over here. Now, as a grown man, now I understand those two women. It wasn't the church talking, but as a 13-year-old boy, those two women were speaking to everybody around me. So it really changed the way I looked and saw the world. So that changed me and then really set me on a journey of where understanding people for people and loving people for who they are and working with people from where they're coming from is where you make all the difference in the world. And I've seen that in my own life in so many ways. But we live in a world and a culture that would tell us different things for one specific purpose, and that is they want division. You guys know who the easiest people to control are? Those who are divided. Imagine in a world if the Civil War had happened in 1777. Think about this. You have a British army that just got their butt kicked by our forefathers. But all of a sudden, we're divided and we're fighting against one another. Guess what happens in that moment? We don't have the War of 1812 because it would have been over by then. The British would have come back and taken over North America if we had fought that war at that time. Because divided people are easier to conquer. And we have that in our country and our world today. Is that that's a one agenda, one purpose. And I am grieved by this fact. And you can tell me I said this, but it's actually true. They have used the black race as a tool to create division.
That's right.
They have chosen to say, if I want to keep people divided, I will tell them it's always a black and white issue. That's what it's about. But the truth is, no, it's not a black and white issue. It's an American issue. There's an American ways, American values, and soldiers like Derek and the many here who stood and fought for our country and our way of life didn't fight for a white way of life. They fought for an American way of life, rooted in our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, and the values of our culture. But when you create this dynamic, and you know, we went through this thing with the culture wars, where we went through this season where diversity was the important thing, right? Well, they started out, this is what was funny. They started out diversity, inclusion, and equity, right? Then they realized that that stood for die. And said, oh, we're going to change it. So it became diversity, equity, and inclusion. But nonetheless, diversity, I want you to think about diversity. How many males are in the room here? Raise your hand if you're male. I can't tell by looking at you. Raise your hand if you're a female. Okay. Raise your hand if you were born within 100 miles of Kansas City. Raise your hand if you were born more than 100 miles from Kansas City. Raise your hand if you graduated before 1978. Raise your hand if you were born after 1978. Born after, there are people born after 78, believe it or not. Raise your hand if you like Brussels sprouts. It happens when you get older, it happens, guys. Raise your hand if you like okra. Raise your hand if you can do 10 push-ups. Raise your hand if you can run a mile. Some of you guys are lying.
I'll test you anytime.
Okay, what I just illustrated to you was that there's diversity in this room. Not everybody is the same. You want to hear something racist? All white people think alike.
Nah.
Racist. All black people think alike. Racist. It's foolish. But what they did, they created this dialogue that put us in those camps and said you're either on this side or that side. No. It's like the Israelites were in battle and they're like, they went to an angel, and the angel was who happened to be present and manifested on the field of battle, and they asked him, are you on our side or their side? He goes, not neither, I'm on the Lord's side.
Amen.
Okay? And that's where I want to be. That's where I want to live. But we create this dynamic where diversity and inclusion become a thing. And this is Lee's Summit specifically. We start this journey on diversity and inclusion, and then it morphed, right, into equity. Then equity became the buzzword. And then we saw right through equity, and we said all of a sudden, guess what it became now? Huh? Anybody know?
Separation.
Belonging, yeah, up through dignity is a word now. And if you go D-I-E-D, yeah. Anyway, I think enough of that. But the bottom line is they kept changing the word, but what they were trying to accomplish hasn't changed. It's called divide and conquer. And it's pathetic and it's sad. And you stir up the masses in this idea that somehow, as a student, and I actually heard someone say this, a person of my color can't learn from a person of your color.
Oh, I know, we have that crowd.
You ever hear that? Yeah.
That's in our, they actually have that in our team meetings.
Yeah, they actually teach that aggressively. Now, my problem with that is I went from kindergarten through graduate school, and I never had a black professor. I'm not saying that that's a negative or positive, it's just a matter of fact it is. And I think, maybe I'm wrong, you can challenge me, that I'm fairly well educated. I can read, I can study, I can learn. And it didn't mean, the skin color didn't determine whether or not I could. And we set kids up for failure when we create that false reality. The other piece of the puzzle I want to talk about, Chuck, if I go over 10 minutes, you gotta forgive me here. I set my clock for 30, it's going to be awesome. But this whole thing with the COVID scare. And folks, you know what? COVID's real. We all know that. But what we've been through as a country has been far more deadly than COVID.
Yep.
And we created this narrative that here's what they told us. If you pull back the layers, do what we tell you or you're going to die. Obey your government. Do what Anthony Fauci says or you're going to die. And maybe you won't die. But if you don't, you're going to cause your neighbor, your mom, your dad, your friend, somebody's going to die because you don't obey Anthony Fauci. Wow.
You see where
Yeah.
he's going.
What's that?
You see where he's going.
Yeah, I see. But the bottom line is their work has been done. They created a narrative in our culture that divided our nation on a biblical level. And if you want to read about what happened to us, there's the book of Micah, the Old Testament minor prophet, chapter 7. He talks about a great conspiracy. And in that great conspiracy, you have three players. Number one is what they call the great man, a person of age or wealth. Number two, you have the judge. And that's a person who, interestingly enough, the Hebrew term implies a figurative judge. Not really a judge, but someone who acts like one, who has the power to elevate or to bring down. Think media. Okay? And then the fourth one is third. It's getting late. Chuck, I think I should go now. Yeah. Is the prince, and that's a governing authority. So a conspiracy peaked between the great man, Bill Gates. Remember how vocal he was on COVID? What? Who are you? Go back to your tech world, dude. But he was very vocal on it. The judge, the media, they told us that Donald Trump was wrong. This is one of the most significant political accomplishments in American history, is what they did to Donald Trump. And I'm not some blind Trump supporter who thinks he's walking on water, but the bottom line was they created an evil caricature out of a man who sincerely had America's best interests at heart.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, there's my time. Yeah, 30 minutes already. All right, okay, I lied. But they created this caricature, and that's that judge from the book of Micah, to be able to elevate and make it sound like if he says that hydroxychloroquine will help with COVID, we're going to be against that. If he says ivermectin, we got to be against that. Whatever he stood for, they were against it. They created a mindset in this culture that took that same tack.
Still do.
And here's what hasn't been accomplished. And I'm going to finish up like I promised. You don't have to stand up on that. You're right. I know when he does that, I mean, the speaker's supposed to stop. I know what he's doing. He's trying to bully me. Especially he's a couple of years older than me. Well, he's racist. Wow. Who said that? Come on.
My students tell me that all the time.
Yeah. So we had this conspiracy unfold, and at the end of the day, here's what has happened. If you understand our country and our founding, three basic principles of our style of government, right? It is a government
Of the people, by the people.
For the people.
That's what it was supposed to be. But all of these, all of these little social shifts have created a dynamic where it's given rise to a government that enforces its will over the will of the people.
That's right.
Consistently, day in and day out. And we see it. We see it, and you know what? Here we stand today, and some of our neighbors, and the reason this is how they work, they convince your neighbors and my neighbors that we're extremists. Those people out there who believe that the actual Constitution, the way of life that our founders started was good and right, there's something wrong with them. But they never tell you what they're after. And here's what they're after. They want a system where they are elected, that they can be in office as long as possible. And I'll tell you the story, and I'll wrap it up with this, Chuck. Don't stop looking at me like that. I was a candidate for Congress speaking to a group of conservative Republicans in Washington, D.C. years ago. And I stood up and I said to them, I said, you know what? Democrats don't care about people. And they applauded like, yeah, that's right, that's right. And then because I'm a little bit salty, I said, Republicans don't care about people either. And I gave this really polite applause, wondering where I was going with this. So the reality is all you care about is keeping yourself in power.
That's right. That's right.
And as long as we have elected officials whose primary goal is to stay in power, they'll never do what's right. Because the day they do what's right, the people are empowered and government is limited.
As it should.
And so, as it should be. So understand what we're up against. Your neighbor is not your enemy. I'm going to get very biblical on this one. It says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, rulers in heavenly places. We're fighting against evil forces that want to bring us down to the level where they can win. But we have this promise in Proverbs chapter 15 that the way of life is above to the wise, that he may depart from the hell beneath. We want to win this battle, folks. It's going to be on our knees and through prayer. It's going to be us seeking God and then acting in accordance with that. And I'm going to leave you with one challenge tonight, as you did. And I told you my story about how my friend Charlie invited me to his house, and that changed my whole paradigm, the way I look at life. Right? They forward. I want to challenge you to invite somebody to your house. I want to challenge you to reach out to someone at work. They don't have to be a different color, because I just proved to you a minute ago that diversity doesn't have skin color. It's a way of life. But reaching out to someone who might be a little bit different than you and engaging. You don't have to invite them to either people meeting, but you need to invite them to an activity. A Chiefs game, right? We can all get there, right? A Chiefs game. Or go to a theater, or go do something fun together. Church. Go to church together. Actually, I heard this yesterday, 80% of non-church going people, I heard it's a church, I go to Journey Church International out in Lee Summit, not 80% of people, unchurched people, hope that someone will invite them to church because they want to go and find out what's going on there. But there are ways to reach people and invite them into your space, and when they get there, love on them. Don't argue with them about the doctrinal difference that might be there. My kids, you can tell right, my kids, oh my God, you don't want them here. We have, well, there's two of them they're smart because they think like their dad, but then the other two, we don't know. Sometimes we worry about it. But invite people and engage so we have a chance to make a difference. If all we work on is our little silo and everybody thinks like us, we'll be left stuck in the silo. And at the end of the day, I mean, I love you guys. I really do. But we need more people. we need more because we need to turn this tide. So that when that election comes around and they're told that don't vote for that person because they hate black people just because they won't bow the knee to the Democrat Party, we'll be able to stand against it. And there's an opportunity to win that thing. So anyway, I'll stop there. Chuck, I'm going to give you the mic. God bless you. It's only 15 minutes.
He's my friend because he's a lot bigger than I am. He's a lot stronger than I am. But I like it when I hang around him, you know, because I can kind of be a bully when I'm hanging around Ron. He can take care of it for me. Thank you, Ron. I appreciate you. Real quickly, we have our friend here that wrote a book. She wants to tell you a little bit about it, and I'll let you go.
Awesome, thank you. Hello, for those of you who have not seen me before, my name is Kristen Grubbs. I grew up in Lee Summit, and I went through K through 12 in the schools in Lee Summit. Got a great education, and then I've had a kid in the Lee Summit School District for at least one kid in the last 10 years. But this August we pulled them because for the last year I've been looking into what's going on. I have looked into critical race theory. I have, I should say, everything I found I have compiled into a book. I say everything, but I'm still finding stuff. So the book is written to kind of take you on my journey of what I've learned is what's going on in Lee Summit School District with critical race theory, pornography in the libraries. What's going on in critical race theory, not just in the classroom, but also in the professional development, the training that our teachers are going through, the cost of all this equity, belonging, dignity, inclusion stuff. It's insane. And so I kind of tell the journey, I walk you through the journey in there, and I've got resources in the back to help other parents look into their own school districts. So I know some of you are probably from other districts around here. You're welcome to pick up a copy over here. They're $20 cash, or I take Venmo as well, or you can go to Amazon and you can purchase it there, but I make a little less money if you buy it there. So anyway, if you're curious what's going on in the schools, feel free to come ask me what's going on. I'm happy to talk with you and good questions. I have a podcast called Deep Into Public Education. The book is called Deep Into Public Education, and I have a Facebook page called Deep Into Public Education. Everything that I share is public documents. You can find them online. People just don't know where to look. So I tell not just what I found, how I found it, and then how to analyze it so we can know what's actually going on in our schools. So, thank you.
We have some very well-educated people in our group. There's no doubt about that. Last year, just to give you an example, the Board of Education of Lee Summit, I'll just pick on Lee Summit for now. They had 7 liberals on the board, 0 conservatives. About 5 or 6 months ago, maybe it was a little bit longer than that, I stood up here and I read porn to the entire group. You guys remember that?
Yeah, we do.
You all were shocked and appalled that I could read this porn. And I'm talking about boy on boy, I'm talking about oral sex, I'm talking about everything you can imagine. And everybody is going, Chuck, what are you doing? And I said, hey, I'm just getting to the bit part. Here, let me go to another page. You want me to go to another page? And everybody in the room's going, no, don't go to another page. And I said, why? Your 5th graders at the Lee Summit schools can read this book. And probably 10% of people in the room even knew that. But we've got people like Jennifer doing the homework. We got people like Rachel. Rachel, you in here right now still? Oh, Rachel had to leave too. But Rachel teaches school in Lee Summit. But we had an election last April. 2 open seats for the Board of Education. We won them both. So now it's 5-2. We got 5 liberals and we got 2 conservatives in the board at Lee Summit. I own a real estate company and I sell houses. And the moms get on a website and they check the test scores. They're looking at Lee Summit and they're looking at Blue Springs and they're seeing the test scores going down. because of the decisions that we're making for our schools by the Board of Education, superintendent, all that. It's very frustrating. So, we are going to get on board again. Guess what? There's 3 seats open this coming April. And I think they can put their names in starting tomorrow, I believe. And it goes till December the 27th. So I know that we've got a group. What's that group called? What is it? Oh, Ashley.
Yeah, Parents Change in Education.
Parents Change. Ashley, you were supposed to be up here.
That's okay, I don't have a lot for you. That's okay.
I was looking around the room, I didn't see you. Ashley is in charge of a group called Parents Changing Education, and there's another group that's vetting these board members so that we're getting some really good quality people that are running. And we will make another difference this April, and then we will be 5 to their 2.
Yeah.
And then we will get some sensibility back in the schools. And hopefully we will see the test scores going back up, and we will see the porn out of the library. Just shocks me that it's even there. But anyway, to let you all know who we are and what we do, that's what we do. We try to get the sensibility back. So come on up, my friend. I've got my friend. Hey, Tara, what's his name? It's in there somewhere. It's in there somewhere, buddy. Why don't you introduce yourself? He's been to every one of our meetings for about 3 years now, and I know him. I just can't draw a blank.
My name is Steve Myers. I'm the treasurer for a PAC called Mo People. So kind of been burning the candle at both ends, so I wrote prepared remarks, that way I don't sound like an idiot. Well, hopefully. We created a PAC. Now this PAC is a nonpartisan PAC. And the reason why it's a nonpartisan PAC is because school board elections are nonpartisan. Last year, or earlier this year, we got some people elected. We came on in with at least 7 Republicans. And that didn't go over well with everyone. Some people, Republicans, really didn't like the thought of Republicans being partisan in a nonpartisan election. So that PAC is gone. So the PAC's called Mo People. Now I wanted to have We the People, but that name was already taken, so we got Mo People. And that's as close as I can get. The PAC has 2 purposes. The first one, to inform voters about school board candidates and to also serve as a common sense gate guard. And I can't tell you the number of times I've been in the voting booth and just scratching my head after voting for the mayor, and I see a whole bunch of unfamiliar names at the bottom of the ballot. I'm like, who in the heck are these people? And so I'm a responsible voter. Pull out my phone and I Google them. Well, Google just says, hey, these people are school board candidates. That's it. All right, what do I do now? All right, let's go for the tried and true tested method. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe. And that's how I did it. And you might laugh, but I'm sure y'all have been there too and done the same thing. Or, hey, this thing sounds real pretty, or, ooh, he sounds hot, I can go with that one. Whatever you gotta do. And so, really, the purpose of this PAC is to provide information so that way you don't have that situation happen again. We're starting with Lee Summit and Blue Springs, and the reason why we're starting with Lee Summit is they've got the highest student population out of all Jackson County. And the second highest is Blue Springs. And so you start, with the highest and you work your way on down. Now, we probably won't get to the point where we're getting all of the school districts in the entire county, but we'll get most of them and we'll be able to help as many people as possible. Starting tomorrow and going through the 27th is when school board candidates can file to run. So if you know anybody that's possibly wanting to run, get them involved. Tomorrow will start the time. And so get them on in there, get them filed. A lot of times I've seen candidates and they come on in and they have no idea what's going on. Well, that's where we kind of have been doing some grassroots support. So Ashley was helpful in the last April election. She's doing her own thing. I'm doing this. we're gonna make sure that we get more people elected. Now, I'm gonna be sending out questionnaires to all the candidates, and that kind of gets into getting more information. Those questions and answers for all those candidates that respond are gonna go online. You can search for them, you can Google them. And it's not, hey, did you vote for Trump? No, it's nothing like that. This is nonpartisan. One of the questions is, what did you not learn when you were in school that you wish you had learned? I want them thinking about things that they can improve things. I want them to be able to answer, here are the strengths of my community and here's the weaknesses. Here's where I think the school board has a place inside of my community. I want them answering questions that it doesn't matter what your political interests are. You want to be able to invest in your community. I want them to answer those questions. So those answers will go up on the website. Now the website hasn't been created yet. And the reason why is because, well, I'm one man. I can only do so many things. I've been burning the candle at both ends. The website will be up and running in between now and the February meeting. So I'm going to be having this. It's going to be through the holidays, getting it all done. As Chuck had already said, we got some people elected. Now, what he didn't say was we got 2 people elected in Lee Summit, and we got 2 people elected in Blue Springs. And so there's going to be an opening for. So in the 2023 April election, there's going to be an opening for 3 Lee Summit School Board seats and also 3 in Blue Springs. I got to read this out because else I'll mess it up. So here's the part that y'all know is coming. This is when I ask for money. I think we can get school board candidates elected for as little as $3,000 per school board. So that's not by candidate. The reason why is that cost is because I plan on having the majority of the funds go towards having paid staff on election day at all the different voting locations, handing out voter guides. A lot of times people aren't researching who all these candidates are. We're not going for mayor, we're not going for city council, we're going for school board. And so that gets everybody. And so I've got to pay people. And I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat. I care if they're going to be, courteous and well-dressed or, clean and polite. And so I think I can get people elected by the school board by $3,000 a school board. This last time we tried relying on volunteers, and herding cats may be fun, but it's not very effective. You get a lot of holes in your schedule, and things don't always work well. So that's why we're going with paid staff this time. Now, how much money does that really mean? Okay, I said $3,000. Well, typically in here, now the room is full as normal. We've got a big meeting going for the Republican Party, going over at People JaCoMo right now, and there's some other things going on. Typically, there's at least 60 people from Lee Summit in here. Also people from Lake Lottawanna, Blue Springs, etc. If I could get 60 people from Lee Summit to each donate $50, that gets my $3,000 threshold. I can move on to Blue Springs. So that's my pitch. I got a bunch of envelopes that you can stuff money into if you really want it. But I've also got some of the questionnaires, so that way if you're curious about this, you can read it here before things go on. Thank you.
Steve, I'm sorry I didn't remember your name. You know I know you.
That's right, normally I come up here, hey, don't remember my name.
You know I know you. We're good people in the room. We're caring people. We work hard. We get done working, we go home, and we feed our families. And we spend time with our families. And we have our weekends, and we go to church, and we take care of our families. But we have not been paying attention for way too many years. And we are not organized. And we need to make that difference. And Steve, thank you very much for getting that pack together and getting us a little bit more organized. So we will have people at the voting booth educated, because that's what we need to do. When I was an armchair quarterback, I went and I voted for the president, and I voted for maybe a couple of other things. And then I'd get on down the list and I'm going, I don't know these judges. I don't know this. I don't know this. I only went to vote for one or two things. And that's what our voters do. They go to vote for one or two things. And then they don't know. Our job is to educate them on who to vote for and who would be a good candidate, a vetted candidate. And so enough about that. Let me tell you what I did today. What we the people did today. We were at the Kansas City Police Academy from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock today. I started this meeting this morning just like I start these meetings. We did the prayer, we did the national anthem, we did the Pledge of Allegiance. Then I introduced Allison Phillips and Dan Nash, who educate the police force on human trafficking. And I wish the room was full. It was not. We had about 70 people in the room, and we had people from social services, we had police in the room, we had victim advocates in the room, and the class was unbelievable. And the education was incredible. And this group paid for that class for the Kansas City Police Department. And I was proud. I was very proud to be there, representing each and every one of you. The human trafficking is probably the most atrocious thing that you could ever imagine. Think about it. A little 8 or 9 or 10-year-old that gets kidnapped and gets raped 6,000 times before the age of 18. Can you even imagine that? And that's happening in America. We have got to close these borders. We have got to educate these policemen. They don't get trained at the police academy on human trafficking. Questions to ask, things to look for, how to check someone's cell phone. We need to save these little girls and little boys and women. We need to save them. Restoration House, it's called Rehope now. They take the end result. They take the survivors and put them in homes and try to get them ready for the real world again. The PTSD, you can't imagine. Worse than any PTSD you can't imagine. I talked to a friend of mine, and he just told me that you can get people healthy physically, with the right nutrition and this and that. But the PTSD is hard to get over, and it's just incredible. But we raised enough money to do the class up there today, and we raised enough money to do another class. Now, I was told today, because of all of our flyers that were going out, and all of everybody that we were getting a hold of, all these police chiefs and all these different policemen, that Blue Springs is awake now. They're going to have a class, and they've got funding for that class. And I was told today it's because of what we've done and how much we've educated and made people wake up that we're getting more and more of these classes. So kudos. Thank you very much for being part of that. I told them this morning, I said, when we save a little girl and they come back and they tell us that we the people of Jackson County, Missouri, funded this education and we saved this little girl, I'm gonna cry like a little baby.
That's the first class
They've done some mini classes, but that's the first class that has been afforded by a group of people. And I'm hoping that it's contagious. I'm hoping that we can all, we can get other groups to start affording this education to the policemen. But anyway, don't mean to bring the group down. I just want to let you know that we did have our first class today and it went over well.
Great.
And we the people, it's not just politics. You guys know that. It's not just politics. We talk about the police. We talk about security. We talk about legal. We have lawyers in here. We have medical, human trafficking, drug trafficking. Politics is 1/7 of who we are. And we started talking about the veterans a lot more lately. So we got 7 subjects that I bring educated people in to tell us the truth. That's all we want. We can't trust the media. We can't trust the Kansas City Star. We've got to bring in very knowledgeable people to educate us so we know the truth. And the truth will set us free, you know. I've invited, since we do health, that's one of our 7, is health. We got a lot of old people in the room. I've invited a friend who is the dietitian, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about diabetes, pre-diabetes and all that, to educate us. Maybe on how to have that extra cookie or that pumpkin pie or whatever. You want to come on in? Carolyn, right? You go by Carolyn, okay? Carrie Skelton, going to educate us a little bit. If you know how to use that, you're great. When she gets ready, she'll start talking for us.
Hey Chuck, while she's getting ready, can I go back about 2 seconds?
Please do.
Kathy and I have for years in Lee Summit, and I grew up in Lee Summit, I did all the things, and we've been involved as parents, music parents, all the stuff. But the one thing we're involved, it doesn't cost a dime to do, is go to the school board meeting every month. We've been there so much to the point that one of the administrators asked us, what are you doing here? You're too old to have children.
Yeah.
And we told them it's our community, it's our home, and it's our money. We want to know what you're doing with all 3 of them.
Absolutely.
They don't know what to do with you when you're in the room.
The beautiful thing is that we are starting to wake up. And we did wake up. During this whole COVID thing, guess what? One of the best things that happened during COVID is that the parents got to see what the kids are learning. Because the kids were at home on their laptops. Or not learning. But they found out what was going on in the schools. They woke up. And that's why we were winning a few elections, like Yankton up in the Northeast won. Youngton? Youngton. And his entire campaign was on education. And he woke up the mama bears. And my friend Ashley's waking up the mama bears. And, so that's what we're up to. And you ready?
Yes.
Carrie, take it away.
Well, thank you everyone for letting me come and speak a little bit. I'm pretty passionate about health. I've been in this field since 1997 as an exercise physiologist. We were health fitness instructors way back in 97, and before I went to school at the University of Missouri, I was a personal trainer while I finished my clinical dietetics degree. So I have 15 minutes, and we keep it short and sweet, but I'm pretty passionate about what I do as a dietitian to prevent chronic disease. And so I have a couple statistics to share with you a little bit about where we are right now with diabetes and prediabetes in our country. it's quite alarming, so I'm gonna jump right in. Because I do have some family members here and some friends and support in the back, and they are in their 80s, so probably one of the older ones in the group tonight. And that's my dad and my mom back there, so. All right, so we'll jump into some heart disease and pre-diabetes, diabetes statistics, go through a little bit about holiday challenges that we struggle with, and then I thought of an acronym to help you all remember a few things that you can take away as you dive into some holiday things. So FFN is my acronym for fluids, fiber, and movement. So you gotta remember that. All right, so heart disease is the leading cause of death for men and women and people of most racial and ethnic groups in the United States. One person dies every 34 seconds in the United States from cardiovascular disease, and about 697,000 people in the United States died from heart disease in 2020, so that's 1 in every 5 deaths, and that's from the CDC.gov website. Prediabetes, more than 1 in 3 U.S. adults have prediabetes, so that's 88 million people with an A1C of 5.7 to 6.4. So if you don't currently get your labs done every year, I do highly recommend. That's what I do all day long. I'm currently at Oracle Cerner for the last 9 years for my career, and I do look at labs all day long. A1C is something that I look at as well as lipid panel. So majority of people do not know that they have prediabetes. Nearly 1 in 5 adolescents aged 12 to 18 and 1 in 4 young adults aged 19 to 34 have prediabetes. So in March of this year, the Journal of American Medical Association put out an article that showed the statistics that we are at about 30% of our adolescents and teens with prediabetes. Well, for me, that was a gut blow. Literally, I was nauseous when I saw that, and I was like, we've got to do something about this. So I went to leadership in the Healthy Clinic at Cerner where I work, and I presented my case. I have my certification as a diabetes prevention health coach, and I said, I want to do this. And they let me recruit 3 other diabetes prevention health coaches to teach with me, and we started a diabetes prevention program at Oracle Cerner. So that's what my passion is, and that's what I'm currently doing, and I will continue doing in February with my private practice. So more than 37 million people of all ages, about 11% of the population have diabetes, and then small healthy lifestyle changes lead to prevention of type 2 diabetes and even reversal of prediabetes. So nutrition challenges that we all struggle with during the holidays, sugar is everywhere, right? Everywhere there's sugar. Cakes, candies, cookies, it's just everywhere. Portion sizes, they're out of control. We know that, so pay attention to portion sizes. Many celebrations with family, with parties and Christmas parties. We just went through Thanksgiving, and you can easily take in 1,600 to 1,800 calories in one Thanksgiving meal. Yes, it's good, but you got to do about 10 miles to burn that off. And then family and friend gatherings, their high stress levels are there. I heard that talked about a little bit earlier. And then limited time. So the game plan, what I encourage you to focus on is the FFM, so that's fluids, fiber, and movement. So I'm going to go through a little bit about each one of those. So we'll start with fluids. The recommended amount of fluid per day is 96 to 128 ounces of water per day. Who can say they honestly do that? Can anybody? Sweet, you've got some good kidneys. Yay, woohoo! I've got a few hands up, that's good. Your kidneys need water, first and foremost, and water is the best thing for hydration. And some electrolytes too, but we really don't talk about a lot of electrolyte drinks unless you're exercising over an hour a day. So when I see all these kids that are, just exercising for 20, 30 minutes and they're out doing a full hour or 2 hours of exercise and they're drinking all this Gatorade and then the juice and sodas, that's too much excess calories, it's too much sugar. So I do recommend a mineral electrolyte beverage of about 32 ounces of that fluid a day, and that can be with the coconut water, because coconut water is magnesium and it's potassium and sodium, and that's okay to do that, and that would be about 32 ounces of that fluid a day, mixed with 2 to 4 ounces of orange juice. That's a really good electrolyte beverage to try. So what does fluid do in our body? Fluid's amazing, and most of the time when I see people that don't feel well and they're struggling with cognitive challenges, or they just feel fatigued and they're constipated and things aren't just working very well, water could be an issue, even with headaches. So it regulates your body temperature, it lubricates your joints, lessens the burden on the kidneys and the liver by flushing out waste products, and it carries nutrients and oxygen to cells. Moistens our tissues, such as those in your mouth, your eyes, your nose, protects your body and your organ tissues, helps prevent constipation, and then helps dissolve minerals and other nutrients to make them accessible to your body. That's a great, I love this image, I use this in a lot of my talks, but that's from the Mayo Clinic, so that's a good one to have and keep on hand. Fiber. So I do diet recalls on patients all day long, and I can honestly tell you that most of my patients don't eat more than 2 servings of vegetables and fruits a day. We're missing the veggies and the fruits, and we need the veggies and the fruits. We really do. That's what makes your gut microbiome strong and makes then your immune system strong. So when you have a diverse gut microbiome, it comes from fiber and what you're eating every day. So tune in to fiber. And the recommendation for fiber is 38 grams of fiber a day for men. Anybody know why? Does anybody know why fiber is higher for men than it is for a woman? Part of it. A male's physiology is larger than a female, so that's part of it. So their intestines are larger. We don't see that, and it's not the most pleasant thing to talk about, but I talk about it all day long, so I'm pretty comfortable talking about that. But fiber, you need 38 grams of fiber a day. Actually, up to 60 grams would be ideal for males. And then for women, it's 24 grams of fiber a day. If you've never checked in on your fiber intake, you can use like MyFitnessPal, and you can enter your food intake, and it will tell you how much fiber you're eating. But read your labels and look at your fiber intake. It's really important. And it goes hand in hand with your fluids. You have to stay hydrated when you increase your fiber intake. So sources are non-starchy vegetables, starchy vegetables, squash is in season right now, sweet potatoes are in season right now, potatoes. And that's another thing that I hear that's a myth, that potatoes are bad for you. They're not. Potatoes are a really good source of vitamin C and potassium. It's how they're prepared that makes them unhealthy. If they're deep fried in oil and they're high saturated, then they're not as healthy. But if you bake a potato and you put some good salsa and make some cottage cheese on it, it's beans, you're good. All right, and then lentils, nuts, whole grains, quinoa, kamut, and brown rice. So focus on eating your fruits and vegetables. The goal will be 7 or more servings of fruits and vegetables each day. It's a great way to help you fill your stomach without exceeding your calorie count. And then compare gram for gram with other snacks, like chips, crackers, cookies. Your fruits and vegetables contain fewer calories and more nutrients. And what's more, the fiber in the fruits and vegetables will fill you up faster than traditional snacks. The last one with that FFM is movement. So there's spontaneous movement and there's planned movement. We talk about this a lot in diabetes prevention. So the spontaneous movement, that's like you have a meeting ending 10 to 15 minutes early, you take a walk, you get up every hour and you walk 2 to 5 minutes. Spontaneous movement. Our bodies want to move, so we want to make sure we're moving more often. And then planned movement, that's regular gym, walking, jogging, cycling, swimming, and a lifting regimen. So the recommended amount for exercise, for cardiovascular exercise, is 150 minutes a day or a week, and that's walking, jogging, cycling, and swimming. So that's 5 30-minute. I'll clarify, 5 30-minute sessions a week. So it's not 150 minutes a day, but it's 150 minutes per week. And then 2 to 3 resistance training workouts to your large muscle groups. And I can't stress that enough with my seniors, because that's my favorite population, and is my seniors. Because the resistance training keeps your lean muscle tissue, but it also helps you with activities of daily living. So if you keep your muscles strong, you're helping your metabolism, which is going to keep your blood sugars low, and then it's going to help you with balance and strength, and you're going to get through your activities of daily living a lot better if you do these resistance training workouts. And it does not have to be like you're training to be an Olympic weightlifter. You just need to do some large muscle groups, either at home, chair squats, anything. You can do step-ups on your stairs. There's a lot of things you can do at home that I would encourage you to keep doing as you age and go through this beautiful life that we have. And then flexibility, so that should be done daily. All right, so most of all, remember what the season is about, celebrating and connecting with people you care about. And when you focus more on the fun, it's easier to focus less on the food. And again, I'm Carrie Skelton, and I'm happy to help if anybody needs any help with their nutrition and physical fitness. I love what I do, and thanks a lot for your time this evening.
Oh, come on. You can't be any further than that.
Promise. That's how far I can bend.
I bet if there's a donut on the floor, you can.
Give it to Derek.
I tell you, I couldn't touch my toes when I was 8 years old. I think it's genetic. I really do. That's what I say to everybody. You know, this group educates. I've gone over that over and over and over and over. We have speakers on all these 7 different subjects. If you have the perfect speaker that would fit with this group and educate this group on any of those subjects, please let me know. Our Lieutenant Colonel got the flu. He was supposed to speak first tonight, and he got the flu, and he could not make it. And he was going to tell us that he's not in the Air Force anymore down at Whiteman Air Force Base because he would not take the shot. So they retired him, and he was going, and it doesn't matter if you've had the shot or you haven't had the shot. That's not what we're saying at all. We're just saying, don't make anybody take the shot. You know, it's not it shouldn't be a requirement. So he was just going to educate us on what the Air Force was doing. And I read, and I don't know the validity of it, but I read yesterday that the Air Force, I guess it was the Supreme Court or something, said that they can't require it anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
Did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, all right, good. I'm glad you confirmed that. So it's a wonderful thing. They're starting to wake up. Starting to wake up. Now, to finish up this evening, I've invited my friend Derek. He spoke at We the Sheepdogs. We the Sheepdogs is a group within the group. We meet at 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock. And what we educate everybody on is home security, subdivision security, parking lot security. We educate people on to pay attention, not be on your cell phone like this, you know. Pay attention. Pay attention to that mother with the 2 children that are walking in the parking lot to their car. Keep an eye on them. Make sure they get to their car safely. It doesn't take any time at all to keep an eye on others, watch out for others. Even if they're strangers, it doesn't matter. Keep our eyes open, pay attention. Derek, I've asked Derek to come and talk to us in case we lose our electricity for a week or 2, and we need to survive for a week or 2. I was talking to him last week. I bet I don't have a week's worth of water at my house. And what if we have no water? You know, so after speaking with Derek and talking to him at the directors meeting a couple of weeks ago, I'm going, okay, I need to start practicing what we're preaching, and I need to get a month's worth of water and a month's worth of food down in the basement that I could live on in case we do lose our electricity from a ice storm. So, Derek?
Is it okay with you if I want you to? I'd like to talk to everybody tonight about renewing your vehicle's manufacturer's warranty. We contacted you via phone and you were not very polite, so we tracked you down. If it's all right with you, I'll go a little off script, and I just want to cover general basic readiness that would apply to really any situation and not necessarily just a power outage. The sheepdog group was in earlier. They got here before you guys. Some of you came in and picked up the end of the discussion that we had, and with Chuck's blessing and with the blessing of the group, I would like to really just kind of back up and just cover general readiness for anybody who may not have been here for that portion. That's going to be provided I can find my notes. I'm Sherman's dad. I don't know if you guys know that. Sherman's the funny looking kid that sits up front with me with the pointy furry nose. And Chuck has asked that Sherman and I sit up front to help kind of maintain security, which we're very, very happy to do. And one of the reasons Sherman is security trained, hey buddy, and this is why. He's ready if something goes down, so that's why we're up at the front door. All right. Can I fight somebody? Yeah.
Where's that donut now?
Let me back up and make sure I've got the right notes. I also use pre-prepared notes. I also hate microphones, but if you can't hear me, just speak up and I'll speak up. The reason I use prepared notes is because I suffer from ADD, and I also suffer from OCD. So I don't stay on track, and then I get very frustrated with myself that I got this organized. So for your benefit and mine, we will just follow. Yes. All right. So a lot of us have given some consideration to at least a very basic preparedness mindset for a little while. And some of us only recently started to give some consideration to a basic preparedness mindset because of some factors that we've seen over the past couple of years. We've seen COVID-19. Through COVID-19, we went through a variety of different shortages. In our meeting earlier, we talked about toilet paper. Some of you were here for that. We talked about baby formula. We talked about feminine products. We talked about medications. We talked about diesel shortages. All the things that keep coming up in the headlines make us a little nervous and make us feel like, okay, well, maybe it would be a good idea for me to have a few extra packs of toilet paper on hand in case this happens again. Or maybe have a few extra cans of baby formula. Or a can of diesel in the garage if you have anything that runs on diesel fuel. We've seen riots, which in some cases block our access to general avenues that we may be familiar with or that we use frequently. We've seen civil unrest. There were murder hornets at one point in time. We've had hurricanes. We've had political uncertainty. We've had natural disasters. What other factors have we seen over the past couple of years? You guys are probably aware of some that I'm not even thinking of. Health crisis. We've got issues going on in our schools, which Chuck talked about. We've got personal health concerns. Just things that we might want to give some consideration to so that things of this nature, or even the things that we can't predict, might come up in the future. Let's see. I think going into the pandemic, they started talking about lockdowns. They started talking about essential businesses only. I took that literally. When they said essential business, I expected hospitals, pharmacies, maybe a few gas stations, a few select grocery stores, possibly banks on certain days. I did not expect that under lockdown conditions in a pandemic situation, if I remember correctly, it was a Monday morning. The lockdown went into effect throughout the metropolitan Kansas City area or Jackson County. And I just expected, and I didn't really introduce myself. My name is Derek. Here I am. I'm the owner of a Target Time, the shooting range and gun store. And I didn't expect we would be allowed to be open. In fact, I was told by Jackson, I reached out to Blue Springs, Community Development Center, or Economic Development Center, asked them, Chamber of Commerce, if we were essential. They said, let's find out, we'll get back with you. According to Jackson County, we were not. So I did what I was told to do. We shut our doors. We made provisions to do some remodeling within the building. I had employees set aside. I had one employee who was going to stay on the clock, come in and help me so I could keep him healthy away from the public and make sure everything was going to be fine. But that first Monday, I drove up to the shop, driving the 2 miles that it takes me to get there. It looked like a Saturday afternoon. Everybody was out. It looked like we had a 2-week vacation from school. Nothing was really closed. And I thought, well, okay, this is surprising. But I went into it thinking, 2 weeks, lockdown, this is going to get ugly. You're not going to have basic services available. You're not going to have basic amenities available. You're not going to have goods, services, anything else available. We need to get prepared going into this and kind of stock up. And interestingly enough, our industry saw that widespread, that everybody was, times of uncertainty, times of uncomfort, people are going to gravitate towards things and make them feel safe, make them feel secure. So firearms and ammunition were flying off the shelves. It was a very, very wild time for us. I'm sure a lot of you in the industries that you work in, you saw a lot of very sudden changes as things progressed as well. But it kind of set me in a position back, and we had a lot of the public coming to us, and they were asking, what do we do about this? How do we get ready? Where do we go to find resources on how to be ready? And finally, they came to me and they said, you do it. And so we started to put some of these classes and some of these courses together. How much time do I have?
You have about 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes, okay. Okay. So what do I do? Where do I start?
need in their house.
Very good. So, I'm gonna sound like Camilla Harris here for a minute. You don't know what you don't know until you know what you don't know. And you can be ready for, it's not possible to be ready for everything, but it is possible to be ready for at least something, which is better than being prepared for nothing. I can write speeches for this one. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Now that's the end of my Camilla Harris impersonation, but these are all very true statements. And in a survival or at least a preparation situation where I like to talk about the rule of twos. And the rule of twos kind of helps to establish a level of importance for certain factors within a emergency situation. You can go in an extreme threat situation. If you're in a combat situation, a home invasion situation, you can go 2 seconds without cover, concealment, or shelter. And I'm talking about extreme scenarios. If you're in 0-degree temperatures and you're stuck outside, it's windy, you're wet, you're cold, you're freezing, 2 seconds without, where am I? Cover and concealment, thank you, cover and concealment. So your risk of being shot at, unexposed, somebody breaking into your house, your reaction time of 2 seconds, 2 seconds without cover and concealment. You go 2 minutes without air. So you're in a situation where the air is not helping to breathe, you've got 2 minutes to get out of there. You can go 2 days without water, and this goes back on what Chuck and I were talking about. Water is one of the most underappreciated commodities in a emergency situation, a long-term emergency situation. 2 days without water is not very long. I'm not a nutrition, I'm not a dietitian, but what we typically project or what we preach is the best idea is to have at least 2 gallons of water on hand per person per day. That's going to provide you with ample water for basic hygiene, cleaning your environment, cleaning up your dishes, bathing yourself, and worst case scenario laundry, and then also provide you with hopefully a gallon for consumption. The dehydration is extremely ugly. In a water situation, obviously you can have bottled water on hand. You can get the big 5-gallon jugs of water. And the thing that I get asked frequently is, well, how long is that good? How long does water stay usable when it's in a container? You supplement that with some sort of a purification device. I don't care if it's a Brita pitcher, I don't care if it's a countertop Berkey unit, if it's a gravity-fed filter system, which are all very cheap. There are things called life straws you can buy for $20. If you've got bottled water that's been sitting in the bottles, still in plastic wrap in your garage or your basement, and it's been there for 10 years, it's still water. It can change color, it can get cloudy, it can smell funky, but it's water. And if you've got a filtration device to run it through, it's pure water. So storing water, replacing your water, it's not a difficult thing to do. We had a whole, it was an hour-and-a-half presentation we did specifically on collection, storage, and preservation of just water. And this is a very broad, very diverse topic. There's a lot of options out there, but the basics is have water on hand. Ideally, you will cycle through the water that you have on hand if you're responsible, which I'm not always that responsible. So I do have some water that's been in my garage for 5 to 10 years. But some of the other products I will circulate through. I replace them as I use them, but I just have a set amount on hand and I like to maintain at all times. That's the way I'm using my plan and extending that overall shelf life. So water, very, very important. But water is water, especially if you've got a purification device on hand. It doesn't matter how long you've been storing it. So 2 days without water, 2 weeks without food. And the basic general recommendation on food, I prefer 2 pounds of food per person per day. I prefer somewhere between 2,400 and 3,000 calories per person per day. It's always better to hope, or at least account for more than you may possibly need. It's also best to account for stressful situations where you're possibly using more energy than you otherwise normally might. If you're going to be extremely cold, you're going to be shivering. That nourishment is going to help to warm your body. If it's extremely hot, you're going to be burning more calories just with aspiration and activity. So always better to forecast for more than you may actually need. So 2 weeks without food. We want to make sure we address the food issue. Past that, they typically say you go about 2 months before you need basic supply, support, or some sort of aid. All right. So when you're making considerations for your plan, for the amount of food, the amount of water, the amount of first aid, the amount of beans, bullets, bad guys, and beans, bullets, Band-Aids, what we refer to it, things to keep in mind. You've got friends, you've got family, you've got emergency contacts, you've got pets, you might have individuals within your group or your household that might have special needs that will also need to be accounted for. So things like medications, pet food, kitty litter. We keep extra kitty litter on hand in case we can't go to the grocery store for 2 weeks. Some medications are harder to store long-term than others, and again, that's where you want to make sure you're cycling through those. Also, always give consideration to how you're going to administer certain types of medications in an emergency situation. There can be variables, especially if any of those appliances that you're using require electricity. Keep going through my notes here, and moving on. An emergency situation is typically, when is it going to happen? We don't know. What is it going to be? We don't know. At what point? We don't know. A lot of variables in that. There are things that could possibly happen that we've never even encountered. I never would have imagined a pandemic a few years ago. I never would have imagined riots downtown at the plaza, so local. That's what you hear about that happens in Chicago. All right, so where? In an emergency situation, ideally, home is a pretty good place to start. You hear a lot of people who talk about an emergency situation, well, I've got a bug out plan. The single most important and effective factor in a successful bug out plan is it's a two-part question, but where are you gonna go? And how are you going to improve that place once you get there? If you don't have a piece of property that you own, that has a rigid structure on it that you can occupy, you're essentially looking at going on a long-term camping trip on someone else's land that you're probably going to get kicked off of without all of your gear. So a bug-out plan is only successful if you truly have somewhere to go. I hear a lot of people talk about the bug-out plan. You really, quite honestly, you're probably better to stay put. All your stuff is there anyway. Now, the way that becomes the most successful is when we approach this from a community perspective. We talked about earlier in the sheepdogs, there's an old saying that says fences make great neighbors. My favorite saying is that like-minded neighbors make even better fences. If you have people near you, people around you who are of the same mindset, who have weeks worth of water, weeks worth of food, first aid, medication, if these people are around you, they're not going to come knocking on your door when they see you doing well. And in a long-term emergency situation, the signs that you are doing well are going to be very, very apparent. It's going to be the trash that's piling up in front of your house. It's going to be the number of vehicles that are around your house. It's going to be the smoke coming out of your chimney. It's going to be the smell of food cooking in your backyard. It's going to be the light that's escaping through the cracks in your mini blinds. Somebody's going to see these things. They're going to see that you have resources. This is in a long-term emergency situation. And then you become a target because you have resources. I've been making concessions and setting things aside myself, and Melody's been great. She's on board, so it was not a fight getting her like-minded. But a lot of people who know me, they're like, well, I'm just going to go to your house. And it's a very common theme, and it's a difficult and it's a hard conversation to have, and I've got a light but firm response to that, and I say, well, I'll have the option to either feed you or eat you. Don't force me to make that choice. I'm not here to save you, but I can help you save yourself. So that's where these topics, things of this nature, where it comes into play. That's where you have in there, and we had an entire session that we gave where we focused on just having these uncomfortable conversations with people who might not be easy to get on board. But you start with your family, you start with your coworkers, you start with your friends, you start with your neighbors, and you try to build upon it from there. And it's just as, in a long-term emergency situation, just things like communication become extremely difficult. if we are without power for 2 weeks and your cell phone doesn't work and you can't recharge it, if you got internet you rely on for communication, any basic form of communication, this is quite possibly going to be dead. We created an entire community radio frequency plan based off of ham radios. If you can protect your ham radio in a way that is not susceptible to damage from an electromagnetic pulse, which is entirely possible. I think in my bag I've got a Faraday bag, which will protect an electronic device from an electronic magnetic pulse, which you stick your cell phone in, and you don't want the government to track where you're driving. But you can protect a ham radio, pull that out. I don't use that every day, but in a long-term emergency situation, I can pull that out of the bag. If I've got a hand crank charger, I can charge the battery. If I've got a generator, I can charge the battery. I can still communicate with other people who have had these uncomfortable conversations with, who also have those ham radios, who also have our frequency code, who know what channel they need to be on, given what day it is. That way our signals are not getting intercepted. So if there's somebody in the next neighborhood over who I've got this relationship with, I need penicillin, they've got penicillin, I can get on my radio and tell them to, hey, meet me at this pre-disclosed location. Nobody else is gonna know where that is, but nobody else is quite likely to hear that radio traffic, so you're secure in our trade. And it's with somebody that I already trust. Where else do we go with it? There's so much to cover, and Chuck's been gracious to give me the time that I had, but a lot of these we'll touch on a single subject that will be as simple as your home, your individual family, home, and neighborhood security plan. That's almost a 2-hour presentation itself because there is so much to consider. These are absolute basics and fundamentals. I talked about using generators for power. Generators are great. They do require fuel. If you are not able to get fuel, your generator is useless to you. Make sure you've got fuel on hand for whatever dedicated period of time you think you might intend to plan on using it. However, using a generator in an extended period of time and in a long-term emergency situation, again, generators make noise. They produce exhaust. They're going to be powering lights and other things that are going to indicate that you are doing well. Use them wisely. Somebody else might want your fuel. They might want your electricity. They might want those lights that you've got powered on. Just things to think about. And again, these are extreme long-term scenarios. I don't like to scare people when I give these topics. I don't know what could happen. But again, just like I said, like Camilla Harris earlier, if you're prepared for something, you're never going to be prepared for everything. But if you're prepared for anything, at least you're prepared for something. So whatever provisions you can have on hand will definitely work. First aid, always critically important. At least a basic, fundamental first aid kit. Which I pointed out earlier, first aid supplies do expire. They have a shelf life. The adhesives in your bandages will deteriorate. The antiseptic that's in those bandages will also go bad. Bandages are not, or any first aid equipment that's not held in ideal conditions can actually become infectious if they're properly used or stored. So make sure you update, replace your first aid kit. Things like smoke detectors. Make sure you've got smoke detectors that run on batteries only, that are not connected into your household wiring. If the power goes out, your smoke detectors aren't going to work. If you've got them that are hardwired in your house, continue to use those, but just have a backup. You make me nervous.
Sorry.
That's a scary
I
thought.
tend to do that.
Well, let's see, I'll go back through my notes.
Sherman's watching you.
Eric, while you're looking, do you know gun safety? Is they protect against any of
It
them?
depends on how they're seen. So what I have found with EMP protective devices is if there any gap at all, that reverse polarity and an electromagnetic pulse can't actually get through. Like for instance, the bag that I have, you can put your device in there, you can close the bag, and what I'll do is I'll connect it to Bluetooth. And that if you buy anything that is supposed to be Faraday protected, make sure you test it, because I went through a couple of different products and realized these don't work. They'll sell them as EMP resistant, they'll sell them as GPS tracking resistant, they'll sell them as, what is it called when you scan your credit card?
RFID.
They'll scan them as RF safe. The ones that the first set that I got, my phone was connected to Bluetooth at the shop, took my phone, put it in the bag, nothing happened. I closed the bag, nothing happened. I put the bag inside, it came with 3 of them. I put that bag inside of another bag, nothing happened. I called myself, my phone rang, I was like, these are crap. So Melody had been using this brand, and she suggested that. I picked a couple of those up, was at home, had the phone connected to Bluetooth, put it in the bag, and as soon as I did this, so you can see it, because you just drop it at the top, nice and open, it was still connected to Bluetooth, and as soon as I did that, it shut off. No longer connected to anything. No phone call came through, no Bluetooth went out. So on your gun safe, which your guns are gonna be resistant to an EMP anyway, but I understand you might wanna store some other things in there. If you can seal the door or the gap around the door with metallic tape, that is typically sufficient enough to block out any radio or Bluetooth or GPS frequencies. And you can protect a lot of things just by putting them in an ammunition can, an old metal ammo can, close the lid on that, seal the edge around that, the opening with reflective metallic tape, and that will also work as an EMP resistant device.
One thing though is you have to isolate an electrical engineer, and I've looked at those things. You have to isolate whatever you put in there with some kind of insulated deal. If it's in contact with the metal box,
yes,
it could be affected. So you just can't put it in the box and close the lid. You gotta put it in there that it's electrically isolated from the box.
I forgot to touch on that.
Yeah.
Anything that is, so like these on the inside, they've actually got a material on the inside that is soft, that isolates your item from the metallic material that's in the bag. So that grounds it. If, like your gun safe, the inside of your gun safe, if it's a fireproof gun safe, it's got the carpeted inside, and that's gonna keep any item from coming in contact with the metal exterior of the box itself. Ammo cans, you wanna make sure, what I do is I line mine with just corrugated cardboard, just cut it to size, and that dog is being so bad right now. Sorry, I apologize. And yeah, you can make a garage EMP resistant. You can line the ceilings with tin foil, you cover that with chicken wire to essentially, it helps to hold the aluminum foil in place. You do that for about $10. 100 square feet for $10. It's actually very cost effective, but it has to be grounded. So you'll take your chicken wire in one corner, hold it so that it's tight, connect that to a copper rod that you can hammer into the ground. It's then grounded. That can protect your garage. You want to line the interior, all of the interior, with something of that nature, including the doors. Unless the doors are metal, metal will help, but you still want to seal those openings or gaps between the doors with a metallic reflective material. That still allow your doors to go up and down, but prevent an EMP. And EMPs, a lot of people talk about it and think about it, see in the movies as being a military device or a nuclear detonation in space. Our sun within our own solar system is known to emit solar flares, which can interrupt electric frequency. In fact, they've tracked some that were big enough that could have caused a huge interruption here on Earth. Unfortunately, they were projected into a different part of our solar system, so they didn't hit us directly, but it's something to consider there. Anybody have any questions or anything they want to add? Chuck's ready to take back over, so I'll let him do it. But we might touch on some different topics on things of specific nature as we go down the road, whether it's security, if it's long-term food storage, water collection, first aid, communication plans. There's a ton of different topics we can elaborate on, but some of them are much more in-depth and require more time. I don't know if we keep those with chief dogs or which direction we'll go.
Thank you, Derek.
Yes, sir.
He's got a great voice. Doesn't he? He doesn't need a microphone. He can project right out that forehead.
Marines come with microphones.
But just to reiterate just for a second, winter's coming. A great way to bring up that conversation is to just say to your neighbor, hey, you got a 2-week supply in case we lose electricity this winter? It's a great segue into making sure that your neighbors have what they need to in case we don't have electricity for a couple of weeks. So it's just a wonderful way to introduce that subject to them. And we go over this over and over and over. Get to know your neighbors. Introduce yourself. You know, you might need them. They might need you. Get to know them. Put a game plan together for your subdivision. It's a great idea. It really is. It's a great idea. And if nothing ever happens, you're still making friends with your neighbors. And it's, you know, have yourself a little cookout in the driveway or whatever the case might be. I said this earlier tonight, and I'll repeat myself, because I tend to do that. Right? Maybe we should call ourselves the good people instead of we the people. Maybe we should call ourselves, maybe we should do something different so we can attract everybody instead of just the conservatives. Because it's frustrating to me that we're not able to educate everybody. I love seeing 30-somethings in here. I love seeing 40-somethings in here. Heck, I love seeing 80-somethings in here, Jeff. I do, I really do. But we need to spread our energy. We need to spread our knowledge. We need to educate those around us the best we possibly can. And I'm not talking Democrat, Republican. I'm just talking about sensibility. We the People of Jackson County, Missouri is a wonderful, wonderful group of people. I know that we had 15 or so in here that's here for the first time. Hopefully you come back. We're always the first Monday night at 7 o'clock. If you're interested in security and safety and all that, we do have the sheepdogs at 6 o'clock. If you'd be kind enough to drop a couple of bucks in the bowl, help us pay for the rent, I sure would appreciate it. And is there anything I'm missing? You got 3 minutes. Come on up. We're going to be out of here by 9, I promise you.
I'm Dave Grady. That's with a G, G-R-A-D-Y, good old Irish name. Okay, not the Brady Bunch from the 70s or the 80s. And I'm running for the school board in Lee Summit R7. Okay, and that's been mentioned a couple times tonight. Some of the reasons I'm running, my 10-year-old granddaughter was informing me about maybe being a lesbian and about furries. And I'm going, where is this garbage coming from? And I know exactly where it's coming from. And I think it's time that we wake up and put a stop to it. So I stepped up and I said I would run. I told Chuck here about a couple months ago that if he gets 3 better people, I'll step aside and help them. Because I don't think we should divide ourselves up and dilute ourselves down. But I said, if not, I'll be one of the 3. I'll step up right from the start. I believe we need to eliminate distractions, okay? COVID put us about 1.5 years behind. 1.5 years behind. Our kids have lost because of COVID. I have a granddaughter. She got a half hour of internet on when they stayed home and did homework for 45 minutes. That's a whole day. Why do they have them for 8 hours if they can get it done in 1 hour and 15 minutes? Okay, we got to eliminate distractions so we can bring back that 1.5 that we lost. And distractions like the pornography in the libraries, that's got to go. It's got to go. It should have never been there when you started. Okay, we got to eliminate distractions like critical race theory. Okay, and like Ron was saying, when you put people against each other, they don't fight for each other because everybody hates each other, and then everybody's upset. We got to do like a wise man once said, we got to start judging people by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin. So we shouldn't be saying because you're black or because you're white, you're good or you're bad. Okay? It's by what people do and how they act and how they live. My decision has been informed by the fact that I became a born-again believer in Jesus Christ in 1974. I was 18 then. I'll save you the math. I'm 66 now. And that's where my decisions come from. So I'm not going to keep you all night, but thank you. And hopefully.
You might not know this, but Ron Freeman is a public speaker. And he has gone around educating schools on unity. And he was going really, really strong in 2019. And of course, he got shut down for 2 years. But we've got Martin Luther King, we've got Black History Month, we've got a lot of things coming up, that if you know of any of these big businesses that want to have someone come in and speak on Unity, Ron is a public speaker, and that's what he did for a living up until 2020. So, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much. Hopefully you'll be back next month. Yeah.
Is there real quick, I forgot to tell you, I've got business cards laying over there. There's a QR code on the back that will take you to Amazon, but it also tells where you can find my podcast and find it on Facebook.
Yeah, I bought a book from her. I asked her to sign it for me, so I can make sure I got it in my library. Thank you very much. You all be safe out there.